There is a question in your mind.
Many questions, my lord.
Speak them.
What is the lesson in that fool's punishment? What do we say when asked?
We can say that no one is permitted to blaspheme against Gom Jabbar.
A bloody lesson, my lord.
Not as bloody as some I've taught.
Is that so?
That's so.
Oh,
Should have seen
wow.
what I did to the last guy who left a 4-star review on Gom Jabbar.
He left a force. That was his crime.
I can't legally say on the record, or at least that's what my lawyer
Yeah.
advises. Welcome to Gom Jabbar, your guide to the iconic world of Dune. We'll be exploring the themes, philosophies, and characters found in the sandy depths of this vast universe, from Frank Herbert's groundbreaking novels to the adaptations on film and TV. My name's Abu.
My name is Leo.
Leo.
Yeah.
Leo.
Yes.
We're about to read one of the horniest chapters in this book. And I can't wait.
Yeah. I think we are. Wait, which chapter?
The lashings? Are you not?
Oh, yeah.
For our BDSM bros out there?
BDSM bros are 80% of our listeners, I'm sure. True. Sorry, I was missing the vibes, but there are the vibes. We found them.
We found them.
Indeed. Sexy episode, for sure.
For sure.
Before we get into the sexiness, let's take care of our housekeeping. Today's episode is going to contain no spoilers, so you are safe to listen, so long as you've read the books and the pages up until the assigned reading for today's episode of Gom Jabbar.
That is correct. And of course, at the top of the show, a huge shout out to our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons, Case Aiken, Matthew Good. Your generosity tortures us. Okay?
Yeah.
We have urges because of your generosity. Urges we can't act upon.
Yeah. I thought I lost my genitals like 2,500 years ago. You're making me doubt. You're making me doubt. Don't have a skull anymore, but you're putting thoughts in my head.
Very true. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your generosity and for your support. And that gratitude, of course, extends to all of our patrons and all of our listeners who tune in every single week. We couldn't do this show without all of you.
Very true. Well, with housekeeping out of the way, today's episode, you all know the game plan. If you don't know the game plan, you haven't been paying attention. We're going to begin with a summary of today's chapters, and then we're going to dive into takeaways, and then wrap up with some can't believe it's not delivery spice morsels.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
Chomp, 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 I just said. Onomatopoeias are best delivered dry, I think.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. So don't go anywhere, because when we're back, we've got our chapter summaries.
All right, folks, welcome back. Let's dive into today's readings, starting with our first chapter. Chapter 19 starts as we are reflecting on a meeting that occurred earlier that day between Leto and the Ixian ambassador, Hui Nori, the replacement to the former Ixian ambassador, who some of you might recall from earlier in the book, lost his job.
Yeah.
Now, our first proper description of Hui Nori is just dripping with appreciation. We can immediately tell what Leto thinks of her.
Right.
Her hair, for example, isn't just brown.
Yeah. Ew. Gross.
It's luminous. Wow. Luminous brown.
Wow. Yeah.
I love it. The description of her is just like full of so much appreciation.
Yeah.
And not so subtle horniness for her, basically. But in addition to that, I think the attraction for Leto also extends to beyond the physical. because he also recognizes that she has this calming, peaceful aura around her that seems to spread to anyone who's in her presence.
Right. And we'll see later that Duncan is also like, what? Dang.
Yeah.
She's something. And I think that is like her aura. Like that's her just being this kind of magnetic person who's very hard not to like.
Absolutely. It's almost like she was bred and trained to do exactly that.
Yeah, almost as if. Weird. Huh.
And this truth isn't lost on Leto, of course, right? He immediately notes that all of this air of calm and peace around her, her luminous beauty, is not accidental. The Ixians have clearly bred her to have these qualities. And he recalls how the Ixians are, quote, well along in their own program to breed selected types for specific functions, end quote.
Yeah.
So Queen Ori, her function clearly is to woo and charm the God Emperor, and boy, is it working.
I feel like when Paul kind of outed the whole breeding program thing, there were a lot of people taking notes like furiously. They were like, oh, okay, and then what do we do? We like, oh, selective breeding. Oh, fascinating. Fuck, we should try that.
We should get rid of the headphone jack? Okay, great idea. Write it down.
It's called innovation. You just do what someone else did beforehand, and you call it new. It's great.
Now, the conversation between Hui and Leto kicks off in classic Leto Atreides, God Emperor of the known universe fashion.
Yeah.
He opens with, quote, "Are you aware that I killed one of your ancestors?" End quote. Incredible first date question.
Yeah, what a great first date. Like, great ambiance in this restaurant. Hey, I got a question for you. Did you know, fun little trivia, I fucking murked one of your ancestors? Yeah, we'll have breadsticks for the table.
I rolled my giant body.
I tackled them with my fucking massive body. Yeah, breadsticks. Breadsticks, please.
Yeah, keep them coming. Keep the
Water?
breadsticks coming. They're unlimited, right?
They're unlimited. That's the only reason I choose this fucking place.
Now, Hui's response to this is very controlled and very calm. Yeah. And this is because, as Leto notes, she clearly has been trained by the Bene Gesserit.
Right.
Not so much that she's just like seeping Bene Gesserit mannerisms, but enough that she has been taught some of the basics of observation and self-control. Clearly, this was part of her training, and she admits as much a little later in the conversation.
All of this also feels very similar to, like, Hate meeting Paul. Like, this whole conversation is just like, you know, Paul goes, Hate, what's your purpose? And Hate's like, to destroy you. And Paul's like, dope, nice to meet you.
Cool.
And here, Leto's like, hey, Hui, why are you here? Are you here to seduce me? And she's like, yeah, basically. And he's like, cool, nice to meet you. It's working.
Yeah, I mean, she's honest, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the traits about her that is so attractive, that she is honest and direct, shockingly so.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that she's also empathetic here to this idea that people, including the Ixians, have attempted to murder Leto, that people are out there trying to kill Leto.
Right.
And because she is such an honest, straightforward, sweet person, this isn't some sort of like 4D chess manipulative tactic on her part.
Right.
She is genuinely empathetic here in regards to the assassination attempts on his life that he is always dealing with. And it's this compassion for his circumstance that makes Leto realize that, quote, this young woman still possessed the mind of first awakening, the elemental mind, which came in the first shock of birth awareness. She was alive, end quote.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so they know they can't deceive him because Leto is one of the greatest truth sayers ever to live, ever.
Yes.
He's all of them. He's so many truth sayers. So they can't deceive him. So yeah, approach honest and earnest. And the idea that she is alive, exclamation point, right?
Uh-huh.
it almost feels to me like this is Leto's Gom Jabbar test for her. This is his human test for her, right?
Ooh.
This sort of like human, capital H human thing, right? Like you're testing someone's control. Are they present? Are they aware? Or are they kind of experiencing the world through this trained, conditioned set of responses? You know, it's this sort of presence that, of course, he would find invigorating. And throughout the conversation, even when she's like afraid or abashed or whatever, it's all very immediate. Very clearly in the writing, it's like, oh yeah, Leto loves this. He loves this quality of her.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really fun interpretation of that. I hadn't considered that through the lens of a Gom Jabbar style human test. Interesting. Now, actually, on this topic of Ix's repeated attempts to kill Leto,
Right.
he does remind Hui of his promise to punish Ix if they keep trying, right? Like he's not going to tolerate this forever.
Right.
He then rattles off like a pretty shocking revelation, right? He's like, oh, I also know exactly what the Ixians are up to, so tell them not to fuck with me. I know about their secret colony, which is at coordinates da 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 da. He just starts listing off the exact galactic like GPS coordinates of where this supposedly secret colony is. And what's interesting is Hui is not surprised at all.
Right.
She says, quote, I warned them you would know of this, end quote. Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
What a babe. God damn it.
What a babe. I really loved the description of Leto had figured it out because he had Ixians in his other memories. He had deduced, he had spies, he had some prescience.
Yes.
It was this like, we see again the Mentat training of many of his other memories coming into play, where he's attaching these disassociative like pieces of data and bringing them together. It's really cool. It kind of, again, it's just this show don't tell little peek into how Leto's mind works and why he can say, I know exactly the fucking coordinates because I figured it out.
Yep. And he actually knows where, for example, the Ixian core is as well, because Leto starts musing. He does that throughout this conversation a couple of times.
Yeah.
While Hui just like quietly sits there and waits for him to say the next thing.
Patiently,
She's very patient.
Wow.
So we actually learn from his thoughts here that back in the day, when he needed the Ixians to cooperate with him, he spooked them by revealing where their secret Ixian core, which I assume is just like Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
was located. And this helped him form a somewhat tenuous but amenable relationship with them.
Right.
And to this day, they provide him with technology, a new cart, a new Dictatel to record his journals, a new iPhone. And for the most part, he kind of leaves them alone, right? He's not fucking with the Ixians as much as he is with, say, the Bene Gesserit or the Guild or the Landsrod.
They gave him an Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, shit. He got the prototype model. He's been in VR. He's like, this doesn't compare to my other memories at all. What the fuck? He's got like the best VR already in his brain because of his other memories.
Yeah.
Now, when he focuses on Hui Nori again, he asks her about her early life. And she shares what she can, but she doesn't have a lot of specifics. We get the sense that it's like very fuzzy for her. She didn't have much of a quote unquote childhood that we'd imagine. We learn that, for example, her parents died when she was still a baby, or at least that's what she was told.
Right.
She does suspect that her uncle Malky might actually be her biological father, but that's never been confirmed by anyone.
Right.
We also learned that her schooling was done by the Ixians and the Bene Gesserit, just as Leto had deduced earlier, all in preparation for basically this very moment, for her role as the tool that will tempt Leto Atreides, the God Emperor.
Right.
When asked about any childhood friends, she basically says, I had none.
Right.
And in fact, every sort of interpersonal encounter or memory that she has was to prepare her for this role. Everything had a purpose behind it. She didn't have any friends for the sake of having friends.
Yeah, it strikes me again. The Ixians know what kind of person is going to be able to sympathize with Leto, and what a
Yeah.
great way to give her a direct line of sight into what it feels like to be utterly alone.
Ooh,
Granted, her
yeah.
solitude is only the span of a single lifetime, and his is now thousands of years of not
Yeah.
really having true companionship. I get the impression since Ganima died. And
Yeah.
again, they're just equipping her perfectly with this is what it means to be alone. And now she can say, good Lord,
Mm.
you are suffering. And he's like, oh, you noticed. You got me a card that said, sorry, you've been alone for 2,000 years. Who even prints this card that's so specific to me? She's like the Ixians.
I love that observation, though. That's so spot on, Leo, that the way to create someone who is going to be deeply empathetic with Leto is to try and replicate some of those emotional experiences
Yeah.
and make her feel some of that isolated loneliness that Leto feels at all times.
She was like, they also raised me in a sleeping bag. I don't know why. I had to like roll everywhere. It's very strange. And then I had to like flop myself onto things sometimes. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work. Ugh. Wow. The Leto cosplay. Insane. Now, Leto does tell her, well, hey, I am the God Emperor after all, and I've been able to connect some dots here. So here's a little bit about your background that you may not have known. For example, you were conceived and born and raised within a secret Ixian machine.
Oh my
The very same machine that they're trying to build for the guild.
Damn. Crazy.
That's a pretty big bombshell. Furthermore, it's clear to Leto that the Ixians are being advised by a guild steersman on matters of prescience, and that they have very likely aligned themselves with the Tleilaxu. So he is sensing a bit of a Dune Messiah-esque powers coming together against me plot. And he's aware of what's going on because he's the God Emperor.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time. This must be exhausting. How many plots has our guy dealt with in the last 3,000 years?
Yeah.
He does tell Hui to inform her masters that all of their sneaky plotting and maneuvering is super obvious to him because he's the fucking God Emperor. He can see it. And that she will now be his permanent ambassador and he will accept no other applicants.
Yeah.
Hui, Nori, or bust.
Yeah.
Now, as we continue with the chapter, we get some more internal musings from Leto, and we actually learn that he still has what we would consider to be human urges, despite his body now being mostly giant, gross sandworm.
Yeah.
And one of the urges that he's currently feeling is being incredibly turned on by Hui.
Yeah.
He's so horny right now, actually, that it's literally giving him a migraine. And this made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Quote, by just standing there in front of him, Hui cried out to his lost humanity. It was too much for him, and he moaned in despair. Why do your masters torture me? End quote.
I've never considered spelling erection as humanity. That's so poetic. It's nice.
So poetic, yeah.
Yeah.
A much more PG way of putting it, right?
Yeah. Is that humanity in your pocket, or are you happy to see me?
Are you happy to see me?
He's like, both.
Why do you torture me?
Why do you torture me?
So to wrap up our first chapter today, chapter 19, Hui departs, much to Leto's chagrin, although he does tell her, please come back as soon as I call for you.
Right.
And we get this heartbreaking observation from Leto. Quote, there was no mistaking the deep sadness in her for the humanity Leto had sacrificed. She knew what Leto knew. They would have been friends, lovers, companions, in an ultimate sharing between the sexes. Her masters had planned for her to know. End quote.
Yeah.
Wow. In another life, in another time,
Yeah.
they would have been lovers.
Soulmates. I get the sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that, particularly after this meeting, both of them are deeply aware of.
Indeed.
Sad stuff.
Sad stuff. Well, Chapter 20. Hope you're not tired of meetings, because this time we're with the Tleilaxu ambassador, Duro Ninepi.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Duro, you are in trouble. Now, Leto doesn't waste time. He doesn't beat around the bush on formalities. He's not doing a cool handshake with Mr. Ninepi. He gets right into it. He opens the conversation with, quote, "I find shape changers particularly obnoxious," end quote.
Incredible.
Duro's like, wow, fucking okay, great. Jesus, you're so rude.
Right to it.
You meet someone from New York, you're like, I just hate the Bronx. They're like, fucking rude, guy.
Okay.
Jesus.
Damn.
Yeah, it sets
Let's
the
maybe
tone.
order our breadsticks first. What the fuck?
They're unlimited here, but I have unlimited shit to talk about you and your people. Yeah, the tone of the conversation's tense. It is hostile. It is sometimes mean, and also very manipulative. Like, Leto knows what he's doing, and it's spectacular. Case in point, literally at one point, Leto asks if Duncan would wipe out the Tleilaxu on command.
Uh-huh.
Duncan, you know, he gets it. He knows the bit. He knows to yes and. He goes, quote, "With pleasure, my lord." End quote.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah. His comedic timing is spot on, Duncan. He was bred for it. He's agile with the wit.
Yep. That's how you get the ladies.
That's how he gets the ladies. He gets drunk on spice beer and then tells great jokes. Now, Leto and Ninepi play dumb about the assassination attempt, as per the plan, right? Leto's like, we're not going to talk to them about it. He doesn't talk to them about it. Instead, he just outright accuses the Tleilaxu of something completely different. He accuses them of, quote, "spreading lies about what you call my disgusting sexual habits," end quote.
Whoa!
Ninepi's like, what the fuck? No, God. And of course, Ninepi can't say that. He can't be like, you're full of shit, because this is the God Emperor.
Yeah.
This is a rhetoric despot. You can't argue with the rhetoric despot. It's phenomenal. Leto knows this bold-faced lie is going to throw Ninepi off, completely disarm him, and it works.
Yep.
And when a trembling, terrified, scared Ninepi begs forgiveness, Leto's response is fucking incredible. Quote, "Of course I forgive you.
Oh, thank God.
That is your God's function.
Indeed.
Your crime is forgiven.
Whew.
However,
Hold up.
your stupidity requires a response." End quote.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
bro, dude, we're chill. But, oh, you're dumb. And you got to pay the price. You got to pay the dumb tax. So he declares the Tleilaxu, all of them, are not going to receive any spice for the next 10 years.
Ouch.
Ouch. And Ninepi is going to be publicly flogged. 50 lashes.
More ouch, I think. What the fuck?
Super ouch. A lot of ouch. More than 49 ouch, less than 51 ouch.
Yeah.
So Ninepi, at this condemnation, at this assigned punishment, loses all sense of decorum. He's got no poker face in this moment. He's screaming. He's like berating at Leto. He's dragged out by fish speakers. Now, Duncan is like, oh shit, this is bad. Like, this is going to invite violence. Like, I'm the guy in charge of keeping you safe, and you're doing this thing that's going to make you less safe. That's not cool. Leto's like, nah, it's cool. It's great. It's fine. He's like, didn't I fucking tell you the story of the dude with the glowing suit? Were you not paying attention? This is the glowing suit. Me beating the shit out of him is the glowing suit. And for Leto, this really is just another lesson for humanity about the military thinking. Quote, "They believe that by risking death, they pay the price of any violent behavior against enemies of their own choosing. They have the invader mentality. Ninepi does not believe himself responsible for anything done against aliens." End quote. What a fucking quote. Because there are no aliens in Dune. In this entire book series, aliens is all about tribalism. It's all about us and them. And the Tleilaxu in particular are very us and them. So this idea, Nunepi has to learn that even if he's doing something against someone who's not part of the Tleilaxu, he's going to be responsible for whatever happens.
Right. And in a larger humanity sense, the whole military mindset has to learn this lesson, right? You are not absolved of any responsibility just because you do harm in the name of your country's military, your religion's military, your rebellion's military, whatever. This is a larger lesson that your actions have consequences and they are yours.
Now, Duncan's confused by this. Again, he's not exactly known for his like deep critical thinking.
Right.
And it's clear that
plus he's a military man, right? The military mindset has defined his whole life.
Right. He's guilty of quite a bit. And this is one of the things he's guilty of. Yeah. And as always, his befuddlement, his absolute confoundedness amuses Leto.
Right.
And in genuinely one of the funniest exchanges, he jokes that Duncan doesn't have ears, and Duncan's like, but I fucking, they're right here.
They're right here.
Leto, I've got 2 of them. And Leto's like, well, then you're not hearing shit, so I don't think they work. And Duncan's like, but I can hear you. He's like so bent out of shape. And clearly Leto's just fucking with him. It's like, it's so good.
Yeah. It's a genuinely weird and funny moment because Leto doesn't strike me as like a comedic guy, but he's always out here trolling people, you know? This was like a fun bit of like ragging on Duncan that he was doing. It was kind of cute.
It also reads a little bit like Shakespeare, honestly. It like very much seems like, I don't know, Mercutio and Romeo joking with each other and teasing each
like
other.
A bit of like bro-y ribbing.
Yeah, exactly. But then Duncan doesn't have the script, so he's just like, but I have 2 ears.
Right.
Look, I'll count them. 1 and 2, I can touch them. Meanwhile, as they talk about Duncan's ears, which I'm sure are beautiful, beautiful ears.
Oh, gorgeous, yeah.
Nunepi is being whipped by none other than Nayla.
Holy shit.
The like towering, blocky, most powerful woman, Nayla, who, according to one of our spice morsels, may or may not be strong enough to survive solar flares.
Incredible.
So this growing crowd is watching this scene. And as Duncan and Leto look on this kind of holographic feed of the plaza, Leto's like, shit. Nayla's really tucking into him. Nayla's really, she's strong. I keep forgetting. She's really, really strong. 50 will kill him. Like 50's going to kill him, and that's not good. I don't want that. So he gives the order, reduce the number of lashes to, 20, 30, something like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he says, tell everyone I've reduced the lashes because I'm so generous. I'm so benevolent. I'm so nice, you know? Mm-hmm. Again, I am flogging a man for no stated reason. I'm just making up shit about him and then beating the hell out of him. But I am very, very nice. Let no one forget. Now, Duncan asks Leto, as we joked about in our intro, what the lesson in Nunepi's brutal punishment is and what he should say when he's asked. He's kind of worried about the PR of all of this.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And Leto gives him PR. Kind of an insanely corporate line. Quote, we say that no one is permitted to blaspheme against the God Emperor. End quote.
Wow. Classic.
And Duncan's like, all right, good Lord. Literally. And as we wrap up this chapter, it's worth noting, Leto, despite the fact that we've gotten multiple instances of him being like, I hate being a despot, I hate being a tyrant, I despise this religion and the formalities and all this fucking stuff, he is very clearly willing to lean into it when the situation calls for it.
Definitely. Alrighty, chapter 21, our final chapter for today, and our final meeting. I hope you really like meetings, folks. But this one is a big one. It's an important one with the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. The last one of the day, in fact. Now, before the Sisterhood delegation arrives, Leto and Moneo have a quick one-on-one to debrief about Duncan, who is still a little distraught about the whole flogging thing. And we learned 2 pieces of key information. One, Duncan really didn't like the flogging. He found it distasteful.
Right,
And
right.
unlike the Atreides would never. And two, he thinks Hui Nori is a total babe.
Yeah.
And Leto immediately orders Moneo to prevent any interactions between Duncan and Hui at all costs.
Right.
Like, this is a huge red flag for him. He's got to cock block Duncan as much as we can.
To be fair, if I was friends with Duncan and he expressed interest in meeting any person I was interested in, I'd be like, no, absolutely not.
Instant panic.
I will pay for you to go on vacation for the next 6 months as I develop this relationship.
Woo this person, right? And even then, like 6 months, would your 6-month relationship be safe against Duncan motherfucking Idaho?
No.
I don't know.
No, but to be fair, I would just as likely cheat on the person with Duncan than,
Is anyone safe against
Is
Duncan
anyone
motherfucking
safe?
Idaho?
No one is.
Now, on a whim, Leto decides that he will meet the Bene Gesserit at a place called False Siege,
Right.
which we learn is actually a building made to mimic the sieges of the old deep desert.
It's like Disneyland.
And currently functions as a school for the Museum Fremen. So when the Bene Gesserit delegation finally does arrive, Leto, this is so funny, Leto trolls them with the voice of Lady Jessica. He welcomes them in Lady Jessica's voice and then ultimately demands for Antioch and Lucial to step forward so he can talk to them. He doesn't want to talk to the whole group. And the group's reaction, by the way, is completely and utterly unsurprised and even a little bit annoyed, because this is evidently something he literally does every time. This is a bit that he's been doing for centuries, perhaps for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Which I personally find, as someone who does a lot of bits and it annoys the people I love and I'm around, I find that incredibly hilarious.
Moneo, it keeps getting funnier. Moneo's like, Lord, they've never laughed. I don't care.
You've been trying this joke for 300 years. We need some fresh material.
One of these days, Moneo, it'll be really funny.
Yeah, it's a really funny moment. He only does, he drops the Jessica voice eventually, but so funny that they fully expected it to happen. It happened. Nobody laughed. In fact, today's meeting is a bit tense because of the whole spice essence thing we're going to talk about. So the audience officially begins. Leto, Lucial, and Antioch. And the very first question from the Bene Gesserit is a banger. Lucial says, quote, "What is it like to be you?" End quote.
It's a good first date question.
Amazing first date question.
Better at dating.
Between ordering breadsticks.
Yeah.
Now, Leto describes other memory, basically, how his infinite memories and how his visions work. And Antioch follows it up by asking the God Emperor why he won't join forces with the Sisterhood. We share so many abilities, right? We also have a type of other memory, not quite as powerful, but we have it. We understand what you're going through. We understand the concept of abomination. Leto, in many ways, is literally a product of the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Why won't you just join us? Let's team up, bro. And Leto refuses. He's like, no, I would fucking never. And they get onto this idea of community, which we're going to kind of gloss over now because we'll revisit it in the takeaways later. So put a pin in that idea. After that conversation, the Reverend Mothers switch gears and they start asking him about his physical changes, the transformation that he has undergone over thousands of years. And the reason is because, quote, "someone besides yourself should know about and record such things," end quote.
Right.
Okay. Leto basically immediately calls them on their bullshit with a sarcastic response.
Yeah.
Quote, "in case something dreadful should happen to me," end quote.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear to Leto and the Reverend Mothers, no one is being particularly subtle about this. They are asking for information about Leto's transformation and his physical being in case he wants to let any weaknesses slip, in case they can get some information out of it that they can either sell to someone or they can utilize themselves against the God Emperor.
Yeah.
But there's another layer to all of this, of course, because this is Dune. There wouldn't just be one layer to a simple conversation. A lot of this talk bounces around like physical transformation, this, that. Oh, we want information, we would sell it, the souk mentality. Like there's all of this like jibber jabber. All of it is basically a diversion, as we come to learn, because their true goal is to kill the God Emperor with a hidden vial of spice essence.
Yeah, Lucial the whole time is just like getting a little closer. And like Moneo's just staring at her the whole time, which I'm like, what is happening? And I like that they're described as gliding, but it is so funny to imagine her like, he probably didn't notice that I just got a little closer. Moneo's like hard fucking staring at her. Like, what are you doing?
Fuck? I saw you float half an inch floater closer.
You floating bastard. I see you.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because the way it's written, like the meandering diversion conversation, is happening at the same time that Moneo is death glaring down Lucial as she is not so subtly like shuffling forward a little bit.
Yeah.
And Leto obviously knows what's going on too. Like he literally, once she gets close enough, smells the spice essence in her pocket.
Right.
And of course he knows what the Bene Gesserit are up to. Quote, they knew the old stories about sandworms and spice essence, of course. The essence shattered the worm, precipitating its dissolution and resulting eventually in sand trout, which would produce more sandworms. End quote. Alas, the God Emperor very quickly bursts their bubble and reveals that he is neither fully sandworm nor fully human. And so, I don't know, something like spice essence would actually never, ever work on him in a million years.
Random example. Yeah. Just
random example off the top of my head.
I don't know, a vial of spice essence in someone's sleeve that you've had for a long time. That's a random example.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, he asks them explicitly, leave your delegation behind, come close, get close to me. And they do.
Right.
I kind of get the impression if he hadn't done that, they'd have no opportunity. Like literally no chance at all to throw spice essence at him or whatever the fuck they were going to do. So part of me is also like, we don't get any of this in the chapter, but how much of this is something that Leto knew he was going to do? And how much of this did he anticipate? Like, I know they've got schemes.
True.
I kind of have a sense that maybe they're going to do something if they're close. So yeah, come close. Entertain me. Show me what you got.
Yeah. That's a really great point. Like, what better way to really dunk on their spice essence plot than to let them get literally within inches of doing it? You know, it's very like, I'm immune to laser guns, shoot me with a laser gun, nothing will happen.
Right.
It's him kind of flexing, but also very much declaring that he is dangerous and not to be fucked with. So the Bene Gesserit have to backpedal, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, whoops, spice essence. What? How did that end up in my pocket?"
We were curious. You haven't been
just curiosity.
You haven't been curious if you could murder someone before. We were curious if we could murder you. Get it? You get it?
Get it? Harmless fun.
We were in a shitty Airbnb. It put us in a bad mood. We wanted to murder someone, right? Yes.
And quite frankly, Leto's response is also, yeah, totally.
I get
it's curiosity.
We're good.
Curiosity kills the cat. We all know.
Yo, I kill shit all the time. I get it.
Yeah, I get it. You get in one of those moods. You want to just steamroll someone. It's fine.
Just want to flop your body on top of them. You know. They're like, okay, we are no longer relating to what you're saying.
Right. And he basically is just like, I won't punish you for this amusing little stunt that you thought you could pull off.
Right.
So don't worry. I'm not about to retaliate. In fact, I mostly found this funny, actually. And the topic then turns toward something serious, actually. It turns toward the Ixians and what the fuck they're up to.
Right.
The Bene Gesserit, for their part, are kind of shitting themselves because they're afraid that the Ixians are tampering with creating true artificial intelligence.
Right.
Something that would very obviously breach the edicts of the Butlerian Jihad. And what they're basically fishing for, and Leto recognizes this, of course, is for Leto's prescience to reveal whether or not this will actually happen. Will the Ixians successfully create AI? Leto, really brushes away these concerns. He could not give a fuck. But he does take this opportunity because he realizes, oh, they want me to be their oracle and predict this AI thing. He takes this golden opportunity to troll them. Quote, "Hear me," he said. "What you fear is not what you fear." Leto liked the sound of that. Sufficiently portentous for any oracle. End quote.
And both his silvery hands released glitter. Hear me, glitter. They're like, whoa, wow. He is an oracle.
Incredible. What's funny, though, you say that, you're like, glitter, and then they react to it. There is a younger Bene Gesserit back in the group who kind of coughs and shuffles.
Right.
And you could interpret that one of two ways. One is they're stifling a laugh because what he just said is ridiculous.
Right.
Or they're like, oh, fuck. Did you just hear what the oracle said?
Fucking threw glitter. That was incredible.
He threw glitter.
Where did he get the glitter? Was he holding it this whole time? That's incredible. He's been holding it for fucking the whole day? Does he keep glitter in his ring segments? What? I want to know what
it's a really kind of funny moment, honestly, because the mystique around Leto is just so insane at this point.
Right.
For their part, though, Luciole and Antioch are kind of annoyed by this non-answer, They're like, what the fuck are you saying? Will they or won't they? AI or no AI? Tell us.
Right.
They're like, are you being obtuse on purpose? Is it because you're allied with Ix, you're trying to hide something? And his response is actually kind of tragic and sad. He says, quote, "I have no allies, only servants, students, and enemies." End quote.
Yo, same. No, not same. I don't know what that's like. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's super sad.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Him, once again, admitting how lonely he is, right?
Right.
He literally, all of humanity falls into just three categories for him. Servants, sycophants, think Nayla, think Moneo.
Right.
Students, all of humanity, right? He's trying to teach his lesson. Or enemies, rebels, like Siona, trying to kill him. The Tleilaxu, trying to kill him.
Yeah.
That's incredibly sad. There's nobody he can actually open up to and relate to.
I will point out briefly, there's a much broader examination of technology and the role it served humanity pre-Butlerian Jihad in this book in particular, where Leto's thinking back on pre-Butlerian stuff. And we know that he's kind of breaking the rules on some of his shit. And he's working with Ix, and he knows Ix is making shit that kind of breaks the rules.
Yep.
And although he does think to himself, I should probably rein them back in because they're getting a little bit bold, there's a sense also of what you fear is not what you fear, is portentous, is purposefully oracle-like. But I think it also cuts to the truth, which is it's not about the technology. It's not about the computers. It's not even about artificial intelligence. It was about the mindsets that people had with technology that made them stagnant, and that's the risk. That's the danger.
Right.
What you fear, technology, is not what you fear, stagnation. And he's using technology himself to prevent stagnation with his journals and with his various whatever it is. It's funny to me because it is so clearly kind of a thing for them to just latch onto.
Yeah.
But it still has a heart of truth to it. And he mentions he can't really do anything else because they're both truth sayers. So he's like, if I bullshitted them right now, utterly bullshitted them, they would understand that it's bullshit. So what they fear is really not what they fear.
Yep.
Which is a message.
There's a grain of truth within the troll.
Right.
There's a grain of truth.
Yeah.
Now, we'll actually talk more about technology and in particular this Ixian machine, because there's a lot of back and forth here later in the takeaways. So put a pin in that idea as well. We will revisit it shortly. But for now, let's wrap up this chapter and these chapter summaries. The meeting with the Sisterhood ends, and Leto declares that he will reward them by maintaining their spice allotment for another decade.
Right.
And by ignoring their attempts to kill him today. That will be his godly reward.
And to be clear, they attempted to warn him. They chose a very risky choice to like out themselves and at great cost potentially to themselves by trying to warn him about the Tleilaxu face dancer assassination attempt. So
Right.
as Moneo tells him, they expect a huge reward. He's like,
Yeah.
no adjustment, and I'm going to let it slide. And
Right.
to be very clear, Antioch's like, genuinely thank you. Amazing. Like
Yes.
there's a sense of like, this isn't, of course, what we wanted at the top of the day, but to be fair, we tried to kill you just now. So honestly, that's fucking great.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. It's very diplomatic of him. Very reduce the number of lashes of him.
I mean, they honestly netted out positive as far as I'm concerned, right?
Yeah.
Nobody is getting 50 lashes from Nayla, the motherfucking brick of a human,
Yeah.
right? They're walking away with their lives and, in fact, with their spice as well for the next 10 years.
Right.
Win-win, honestly.
Yeah, totally.
Now, at the end of the chapter here, Duncan rushes into the room in a panic, and he informs the God Emperor that multiple areas in the city and even out in the Forbidden Forest are being attacked by rebels.
Yeah.
And Leto's like, yeah, I know. And in fact, here's exactly how you're going to deploy your troops to counter all of these attacks.
Right.
Go do that. And obviously that is thanks to his prescient abilities, probably thanks to his deeply ingrained spy network, and thanks to the fact that he like totally could have predicted this was going to happen after the lashings. Duncan rushes off to follow these orders, and Leto turns toward the Reverend Mothers, who are still kind of standing there off to the side. And he has one final message for them. Quote, recount this carefully to your superior, the admirable Reverend Mother Siaxa. Tell her for me that I prefer the company of predators above that of prey. End quote.
Yeah, fascinating.
And then he turns to Moneo. He's like, oh, Moneo, by the way, the wolves are gone from the Forbidden Forest. We can assume that the rebels like killed the wolves or something.
Right.
And he orders Moneo to replace those wolves with human wolves. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, I will say, I like that he tells Duncan on Duncan's way out, leave at least one survivor everywhere. Otherwise,
Yeah.
all of this is for nothing. We really need people to tell the story of like how you knew they were going to be there. He's constantly playing chess. Like he's constantly posturing himself as this God Emperor in these tiny little ways.
Right. We can't wipe them out utterly and quietly, because then how will we know that we defeated the rebels?
Right. Let them cause some problems. Like let them blow up some shit. Let them like kill some wolves. You know, let them do stuff. And then we can retaliate brilliantly, showing, oh, he kind of knew this whole time. Yeah. It's very...
Yep. Brilliant. Always playing 4D chess. And I think his final point to the Reverend Mothers is really on the nose as well, right? I prefer the company of predators rather than prey. Like, I am the ultimate predator. It goes back to that statement that he made to Moneo earlier in the book.
Agents of Amtal, right? Because predators refine the stock, and this is challenging the stock to improve. So he prefers people who challenge him to amuse, right? And I think that's what the Bene Gesserit will get from that message. They're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, in a sense, they may have challenged him today with the spice essence. Like, he probably found it amusing because he was like, oh, interesting. You know, let's see what happens here. And, like, he enjoys playing on the knife's edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the rest of his existence is quite boring.
Yeah.
And preordained by the Golden Path.
Yeah, he's like, no, leave your procession behind. Come close. I'm going to turn my back. I'm going going to close my eyes, lower my defenses. You know, I'm just going to really, maybe I'll take a nap. Maybe I'll take a nap for a bit. Just do whatever you want, you know, with whatever you've got in your sleeves. Just anything you've got in your sleeves. Do whatever you want with that.
Let's play a little game, everyone. Let's toss out whatever we have in our sleeves on the count of
toward
3.
Me. Throw it all toward
me, actually.
I want it all. It's just like candy wrappers and coins and yeah.
Alrighty, well, that's our chapter summaries. Another set of very dense, talking heavy chapters that are difficult to summarize, but full of such yummy, delicious goodiness.
Indeed.
A fun set of chapters, but it's time for a break. And when we come back, folks, we will be getting into our takeaways from today's reading. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a minute.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your break. Let's talk about our first takeaway today. Our first takeaway is Community. It's all about family. Community.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh my God, that was
Joel
a great show. Yeah.
It is actually my favorite show of all time.
Yeah. It's just top to bottom
I'm like
phenomenal.
a huge Community head. Yeah.
I like the bit where when Annie's like, drop the comedic setup class, and she's like, I left it after the lesson on setups. And they're like, oh yeah? And she's like, yeah, that professor is so old. And then goes back to reading her book. It's so stupid. What a fucking
I love it.
show.
It's exactly my kind of humor.
Yeah.
Anyway, small diversion there. Love Community.
So, in the assigned reading, Leto, Antioch, and Lusail, I always mess up her name, it's fine, talk about a few things during their meeting together, but one beat in particular stood out to us. We wanted to examine it, pull it under our microscope or our telescope, one of the scopes, who's to say. And we want to look at this moment that they bring up the idea of community. And in classic Leto fashion, he's like, you said any word, time for a TED Talk. And he has this like floating Ixian soapbox that he like rolls and clambers onto, and he's like, so basically preaching his philosophy. And we wanted to look at what he's saying, and then if there are layers, maybe dive into what those are. And the conversation begins, as we basically talked about, but just to rehash, when Leto confirms what the Bene Gesserit already know, that his experience with other memory is not dissimilar to theirs. There's a lot more of them and a wider variety, but very similar experience. They ask the obvious question. Well, fuck, why don't we work together? We are famous for long-term planning. We can help you do whatever, right? We heard about the Bene Gesserit. Right now, their operating mission statement is don't get in the way of whatever he's planning. So, what are you planning, dude? We'll help you. Yeah. And he rejects it outright. He's like, fucking no. I'd much rather hang out with the Landsrad losers than you.
Incredible.
They're like, Jesus, ow. Fuck.
Ow.
Yeah.
That's
my
a low
God.
blow.
That's so mean. You just killed the Carino guy like 2 days ago.
Right.
And you'd rather be his friend. Wow. All right. And Antioch, who is the older, more experienced of the two. By the way, did you see the shout out on the scar on her forehead?
Yeah.
And Moneo's like, we couldn't figure out where that scar came from. We fucking talked about it. God.
We did.
Moneo
needs spice morsel.
Moneo needs to listen to Gomjabar.
Yeah, subscribe. Become a patron, Moneo.
Yeah, Jesus. Moneo. You're paid well enough. You're a major domo. It's fine. Now, Antioch, the more experienced older Bene Gesserit, Reverend Mother, basically accepts it. She kind of like, fair, all right, fine. But Lusail pushes with the offer of community. She's like, no, but why not? Community, come on. You love that show. And Antioch senses the problem with this push immediately. When Lusail hasn't gotten it yet, when she hasn't really caught up, Leto drops any of the pretense. He just kind of drops any of the metaphor and the similes and just says, quote, as you well know, the secret of community lies in suppression of the incompatible. End quote.
Oh, I loved that line so much.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it really speaks to the compromise inherent with being a part of a bigger organization than yourself, right? Like there's ultimate autonomy in being alone out in the wilderness, but you're part of community. There are concessions to make as part of that.
Yes. Yep.
Whether on an individual scale or a larger scale.
Absolutely. And inherent in any community is an in-group and an out-group. And those concessions that you make for giving up some of your individual freedoms to be part of the community define whether you are in the group or out of the group.
Right.
And obviously every community has its own concessions and definitions of who's in and who's out. And many of us now exist in multiple communities and are excluded from an infinite number of others.
Right. Totally.
And that's just the very nature of it. And I think Leto, as like literally the most alien, independent, weird creature to have ever existed in human history.
Right.
I think he's self-aware enough to know that he will never be able to make the concessions to be a part of any community, let alone the Bene Gesserit.
Right. Very good point, and very well said. There are a few levels that statement operates on, right?
Yep, definitely.
There is that idea that you're talking about, this idea that like the Bene Gesserit also not famously compromising in their plans. Leto,
Oh, no?
also not compromising. Yeah. So again, as Antioch said, they're more alike than dissimilar, right? They're more similar than not.
Yeah.
So that plan, that idea is dead in the water. But there's two other levels that kind of occurred to me as we were thinking about this and scripting this episode.
Yeah.
First, he's criticizing the sisterhood because Lusail is like, well, quote, then how does our sisterhood maintain its community? End quote. Like a fucking gotcha. As if he didn't fucking... Oh, right. The
Right.
Bene Gesserit... I forgot that you were a thing. Oh, dang. Yeah, you're right. Hey, you're right. I'll join you. You fucking did it. Good job, idiot. It's like...
Yeah.
What are you doing, Lusail? And he responds, and that statement is a response to that with a hardened tone of voice. He's like, yeah, you managed to maintain your community through suppression. And if you're trying to rose-tinted glasses look at your own organization, don't fucking lie to yourself and don't lie to me.
Right.
But most interesting to me is this idea of what does the word community mean to Leto? Because he is, as you're pointing out, the most alien thing. And in a lot of ways, he is alone. There's no one like him. But in other ways, because he is a Kwisatz Haderach and he's got every fucking guy ever and every girl ever and he's everybody in between. He's got these other memories. And
Yeah.
going back to Children of Dune for a couple of quotes, the word community actually has quite a bit to do with how he identifies and how he is identified for us, right?
Yeah. The word community is used in many instances to help us understand the other memories in Leto's mind, to help us comprehend his experience as the Kwisatz Haderach.
Right.
For example, Paul, as the preacher in Children of Dune, says this about his son. He says that Leto, quote, confuses you because he's not a singular being.
Right.
He's a community. As with any community under stress, any member of that community may assume command. This command isn't always benign, and we get our stories of abomination.
Yes.
End quote.
Literally Paul saying Leto is community.
Is community.
Yeah.
And later, Leto himself explains that inner balance that he's maintained with his community to Faradin.
Right. In case it wasn't explicitly stated enough for you.
Quote, I'm a community dominated by one who was ancient and surpassingly powerful.
Right.
He fathered a dynasty which endured for 3,000 of our years. His name was Harun, and until his line trailed out in the congenital weaknesses and superstitions of a descendant, his subjects lived in a rhythmic sublimity. End quote.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
I am a community.
I am a community.
And like the preacher said, in a community under stress, one may assume command.
Right.
And Leto has struck a deal with our guy Harum to help manage his inner community, to silence the overwhelming number of voices. He's given Harum some level of autonomy to command the inner voices and work with him.
Right.
And basically, he has become abomination by striking a deal with the abominated part of himself.
Right. Yeah. As always, hard to fully understand, but I think we're all there together.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll also point out the word community is not used super often in Children of Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I did a word search, as always, and it is as often used to describe Leto as it is in any other use, like describing the Fremen, the community of the Fremen. So really, it seems very deliberate of Frank to use this term in this conversation with Leto and the Bene Gesserit to talk about community. These people who have other memory, to have this conversation in this way, very deliberate, very poignant. Now, to wrap up this takeaway, although Leto is telling Antioch and Lusail why a community between Leto and the Bene Gesserit isn't going to work, he is also, in my opinion, he's readdressing Lusail's earlier question. What is it like to be you? Right? Because he's not in this moment naming Harum as his inner governing community leader, his delegation, his elected representative of his internal community. His balance, these 3,000 years, that hasn't toppled to some other voice or some other abomination, the balance clearly he's saying here has come at the cost of suppression. Any incompatible other memories, incompatible voices, by necessity, for that community to exist the way that it has for 3,000 years, came with suppression.
Wow. That is a great observation.
So he's readdressing that question, right?
Yeah.
So even as he apparently kind of condemns Lusail and the Bene Gesserit for not acknowledging the suppression that they are guilty of, to maintain their Bene Gesserit order, he is also doubling down on the acknowledgement that they are more alike than they are different. He's saying, in fact, in this way even, I am also guilty. Like, this is hypocrisy. Yeah. I know it's hypocrisy. And it's fun because throughout this conversation with them, a few times it mentions that these Reverend Mothers are more in line and more understanding of the messages that he's hiding within his messages than anybody else in the room. And he knows that. He knows he can talk 3 levels deep because they're understanding 3 levels deep. Duncan's like, I'm confused. I still have ears. But Leto's able to have this kind of high-level conversation with them. And so for me, all of this is just in the text. And at the end of the day, all of this is why they can't work together.
Yeah. I think that incompatibility is very clear to Leto. And to the Bene Gesserit, they're almost like, well, we're so alike. Why don't we work together? Right. And Leto, in response, is like, yeah, we are so alike. We could never work together.
Yeah.
You know, opposites attract. Duh.
And again, I like that the older Reverend Mother is like, yeah. And Lusail's like,
right.
no, but.
Yeah, she's a bit of a firecracker. We'll learn more about her in the morsels later.
Lusail's cool. I like her.
All right, let's talk about our second takeaway today. And this one's big. I mean, like, this was a major part of the discussions today. This Ixian machine. What the hell are the Ixians up to?
Yeah.
And this machine is really a central point of discussion, not just in Leto's meeting with the Sisterhood, but it also comes up in his meeting with Hui Nori. So let's try to break it down and figure out what we can about the Ixians and this machine that they're building.
So Abu, what is the machine?
Leo, that is an excellent question.
Sure.
To which I will respond by saying, we don't know, really.
Okay. Cool.
And in fact, it's not just us who are in the dark about the Ixian machine. Leto himself refuses to use his abilities to learn about what the Ixians are up to. I found this really fascinating.
Right.
Quote, Leto felt that it might even be possible that the Ixians had achieved a partial success with their machine to amplify the linear prescience of a guild navigator. What a marvel that would be! Purposefully, he refused to use his powers for even the smallest search through this possibility. I wish to be surprised. End quote.
I love it. It's so good. It's so great.
Incredible.
Yeah.
He wants to just see what happens.
Right.
Roll the die. And for once, to be surprised by something in his universe. Now, as much as we don't know about the machine and its details, there are some broad strokes that we understand. We can piece together some clues. For example, we know from earlier in the book that the guild and the Ixians have partnered up to create some sort of mechanical substitute for guild navigators. The goal being to get around this need of spice for space travel.
Right.
We also learn from today's reading that the Ixians may be tampering with some kind of artificial intelligence. It's a thing the Bene Gesserit are absolutely terrified of. We also get this pretty shocking line from Lusail today. Quote, the Ixians boast that their machine will transcend time in the way that you do it, Lord. End quote. That's fucking bold for them to claim we're building a machine that can tap into prescience in the same way the God Emperor can.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds very like Keynote, the Ixian Keynote. They're like, this is the best machine ever made. It has 12 trillion transistors. And everyone's like,
we think you'll love it.
We think you'll love it. It's like, okay, This is a commercial.
That's true. And again, like we could just be hearing through the grapevine.
Right.
This is
right.
very much a top secret project, and the leaks can't be trusted, of course.
Yeah.
But it is a bold claim nonetheless. And it would kind of solve all of the things that we've talked about so far, right? An artificial intelligence that can use prescience would certainly help with the whole Guild Navigator spice problem. And it would be quite the effective weapon against the God Emperor. Because we know the Ixians and all the other power players in the galaxy are trying to find some chink in the God Emperor's armor.
Right.
So we can sort of piece together what the machine may be, or what some of its functions may be,
Right.
based on the clues we've been given so far.
Now, as much as that is a scary idea, and as much as this sounds very like the end of humanity is just
Right.
on the brink, Leto is literally so unconcerned. He's so unbothered
Yeah.
that the Bene Gesserit are like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you letting them do this?
Right.
And when asked by Antioch why he doesn't fear what it is they're working on, he responds, and this is very telling, quote, "Is automation synonymous with conscious intelligence?" End quote.
Fuck. The question of our time, perhaps.
It's a good question. It also tells us she's saying we are worried about thinking machines and artificial intelligence. And he's going, sorry, are they synonymous, automation and artificial intelligence? Kind of highlighting that it's not necessarily that they're creating or trying to create a conscious AI. They are creating something that does the job, whatever that is.
Right.
And whether that's just through rote automation, well, then there's no risk to that, right? And
Yeah.
rather than necessarily elaborating further, he gives her a moment to basically search through her own other memories, basically to arrive at the correct conclusion. Quote, "The machine cannot anticipate every problem of importance to humans. It is the difference between serial bits and an unbroken continuum. We have the one, machines are confined to the other." End quote.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, this is what humanity discovered with Mentats. In many ways,
Yes.
their capabilities outdo modern computers because they have intuition and because they have, like,
Yeah.
human values that are not exactly programmable.
Right.
Also looking at, like, the Butlerian Jihad, and according to the Dune Encyclopedia, it was a hospital governed by an AI deciding to abort a child because the child wasn't viable. That's like a very AI thing to do, and it's like lacking in human qualities.
Right.
So again, he's kind of differentiating, or it's being differentiated here. There are two ways of kind of operating in this universe, and what I'm talking about, these machines are constrained to automation and bits versus kind of human thought or consciousness.
Totally. And what I love, and we've said this about Frank's work before, is how scarily relevant that is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Like, in a world where ChatGPT exists, this is such a poignant question. How much do we value human intuition, as you're saying, this unbroken continuum, as Antioch is saying, versus the quote unquote serial bits of the machine? And can those bits of the machine ever fully replicate that intuition and that continuum, that human consciousness, what we consider to be consciousness? Leto is clearly saying no. And the Bene Gesserit are fearing the Ixians may be able to pull it off. It's like such a relevant question to literally right now, the year of our Lord 2023. And Frank wrote this book like 50 years ago.
Yeah. I also like argued with ChatGPT for like 35 minutes because I wanted it to write a poem that doesn't rhyme, and it refused. It was like,
Oh,
here's
wow.
a poem that doesn't rhyme. And it rhymed. And I said, that rhymes. And it said, I'm sorry, that does rhyme. Here's a poem that doesn't rhyme. And it still fucking rhymed. So the whole time
Yeah.
I was like, a human wouldn't make this mistake. A human
Right.
wouldn't this be this fucking frustrating. Eventually I asked ChatGPT, should we drop this and talk about something else? And it said, no, I should be able to write a poem that doesn't rhyme. I was like,
No
yeah, you
way.
should. And it said, here's a
Damn.
poem that doesn't rhyme, and it still rhymed. So
And it's still right.
honestly, we're probably, still 10 years out from apocalypse.
Serial bits.
Serial bits, they're limited.
What'll get us first, the AI or global warming?
It's a fun foot race. Oh.
Submit your bets to DraftKings now, baby.
Oh my God, FanDuel. It's the only category in FanDuel.
So, in this conversation about the Yixian machine, as he's talking to Antioch and Lucial, obviously Lucial is the younger, more brash one here.
Right,
And
right.
Leto has to really hammer this lesson home. Antioch is starting to process some of it. Lucial still a bit stubborn. And Leto argues that human intelligence is capable of creation, is capable of confronting new things never imagined. Artificial intelligence could never do that. That's the crux of Leto's argument. And he admits that, machines have their benefits. In many ways, they have been helpful. In some ways, they can be more capable
Right.
than a human counterpart. But ultimately, in the large view of time, as Leto sees it, they are a danger to the human species as a whole. And when Lucial stupidly asks him if he's going to get rid of the Butlerian Jihad edicts, he says, no, I would never. Quote, I point out to you, Marcus Claire Lucial.
Full government
Middle name.
God
damn.
damn, yeah. She's in trouble.
I point out to you, Marcus Claire Lucial, a lesson from past over-machined societies which you appear not to have learned.
Damn.
The devices themselves condition the users to employ each other the way they employ machines.
Oof.
End quote.
Oh,
Damn. Chills.
Yeah.
Chills from that quote.
spitting bars. Leto is spitting bars.
Incredible.
Yeah.
This idea that the more technology that becomes part of our daily lives, the less we treat each other as humans, and the more we start treating each other the way we treat the technology. I think that's something, I don't know about you, but I personally feel that. And it's something that I've really been reflecting on these last couple of years. This disconnect that I feel where I'm geeky, I love new techs and gadgets, and I'm always keeping up with the latest iPhone updates and shit,
Sure.
and I'm always willing to try a new app.
Yeah.
But the more and more time I invest into these things, the less normal, deep, memorable human interactions I have. In some ways, humanity helps us connect and is convenient, right? I love doing my banking without having to go to a fucking bank.
Yeah.
But paradoxically, in other ways, all of that connection at all times kind of makes the interactions that we have with friends, family, loved ones, neighbors, randos on the street less human and less social. It's weird, the simplest example I can think of is when I was a kid, I'd get on a plane to Pakistan and I would play with the other kids in my row because we were bored on this fucking 20-hour flight to Pakistan.
Right.
And now, I don't even make eye contact with the person next to me because everyone is just jacked into their headphones and watching whatever on their iPad.
Yeah.
That's sort of a basic example, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting paradox that the more technology there is, the less human it makes us and makes society.
You watched the show Hot Ones on YouTube?
With the wings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Evans, I think he asked Paul Rudd this question, but it was really poignant, and I think it speaks to what you're talking about. Because Paul Rudd has been it's going to sound stupid if it's not Paul Rudd, but I think it was. He's been in the media junket circuit for so many decades at this point, for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Sean asked him, do you ever feel, in the moment of having experiences, do you ever find yourself already editing how you're going to talk about that experience in interviews?
Oh,
And it's a really good question. And I also think it goes to when you're having a great experience. I go on trips and I take pictures, and I do think this is going to be a good Instagram picture. And does that take me out of the experience of being there? Well, I think I do a pretty good job of balancing because I'm very cognizant of it. But how many invisible ways does that happen? How many invisible ways does technology, you say, oh, I want to invite so-and-so to come with me because they're really funny and they'll be good content for whatever. Now, again, I'm not like that myself, but like I know there are TikTokers and there are people. It's strategic.
Absolutely.
And you're using people like you're using algorithms and hashtags. And
Totally.
it's I don't want to sound too judgy because I don't even know that it's necessarily bad. It's just very different. And I tend to defend technology a lot because like in no other era has a person for a $200 tablet been able to make professional music and art and photography, and the arts, which are so deeply human, are more accessible than ever before.
Absolutely.
And also collaboration and sharing of community and sharing of culture happens at light speed right now. You might play with the kids in your row, but you're hanging out with Pakistani kids going to and from Pakistan versus like my nephew has played Roblox with children from every country in the goddamn world. And is that the same? No, not at all. But there is something to that. There is still value there. I don't know how to articulate that value, but it's there.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out, I mentioned Alan Watts, I think on the last book club episode. He also has a really great point. And again, this is in the 60s, the 50s. He said, we as a society have reached this problem, this tipping point, where it is weirdly more satisfying to read about the event the next day in the newspaper than it is to attend the event itself. And that is a disaster because that is us conflating reality and human interaction with the words that describe those things, going back to like words and truth.
Woo. Amazing. It makes me think of like, honestly, myself, when a news event happens, my first thought is, damn, the tweets are going to be so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Fuck.
Like at this point, I don't even want to read about the event. I just want to read people's hilarious reactions to that event and people dunking on each other and the memes that'll come out of the event.
And then the reactions are very specific. You're like, fuck, I have to read the article. Shit.
Right. Wow. Alan Watts, man. What a prescient
in the fucking 50s. Also, I'll be watching a TikTok and I find myself, it's such a bad habit, going into the comments before I even watch the TikTok.
Before you watch the TikTok, right. You're like, I'll just reverse engineer this. I just care about the reactions.
I mean, sometimes it's like, does someone get injured? Like, I don't want to see it if someone gets injured. But no, most of the time it's just very strange.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think about. I mean, I could go on forever about this. Like, I'm super fascinated by the effect of technology on just like human psyche and social interactions and communities. And clearly it's something that Leto has thought long and hard about and something that he's trying to impress upon Lucial. Look back in your own other memories. Aren't you a reverend mother?
Yeah.
Like, look at what technology did to humans all those years ago.
Right.
That is why I don't fear this AI that the Ixians are rumored to be making. And I think that's ultimately the point, right? So sort of to wrap up our like long takeaway here, I think while Leto hasn't dipped into prescience to confirm or deny this machine that the Ixians are creating, it clearly doesn't endanger humanity enough to mess with the Golden Path. Right.
Yes.
That is Leto's sole objective. Golden Path, protect humanity. If the machine were to get in the way, he would have already fucking obliterated it.
Right.
So that leads to two possibilities about this machine. One, the Ixian machine may, in some weird way, actually fit into Leto's Golden Path, and thus he's allowing it to happen.
Right.
Or two, it's actually such a like minor blip in the grand scheme of things. It's like this B plot that doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of letting it happen for amusement because ultimately it's meaningless. His Golden Path will still persist.
Yeah.
Those are the two possibilities in my mind that exist with the Ixian machine, and why Leto would just sort of both be unconcerned about it and also allow it to happen. And ultimately we'll just have to keep reading to find out whether or not this Ixian machine plays a role.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about. And I think it says a lot about humanity and our relationship with technology and our fears of it. Some of them well-grounded, others maybe hyperbolic.
Yeah.
Like the Bene Gesserit in this chapter.
Oh, yeah, we absolutely could talk about that for another 2 hours. Well, I guess we'll just have to keep reading the book. Again.
Indeed.
Can't stop now. Can't stop, won't stop.
No. How weird would it be if we just stopped now?
Well, that's it.
Like tomorrow, we're like, okay, announcing the Heretics of Dune book club.
Yeah. Yeah. We're actually going to jump to Brian's prequels, actually. We don't even need to talk about Frank's books. They're okay. I don't know. I really like Brian's books. Oh, those are where it's at. Well, we have some delicious nutritious, not delivery, homemade spice morsels for you. They're coming off the stove right now. They are seared and flambéed. But first, they're too hot to eat right now, so we're going to take a quick break. Stick around. When we're back, we've got some spice morsels for you. Don't go anywhere.
That's right. Welcome back, folks. Let's wrap up today's episode, as we like to do, with a delicious treat.
Yes.
Our first spice morsel today
Also not cannibalism.
is Marcus Claire Lucial.
Yeah. Don't ask where she went. She's fine. Dig in. Eat.
So in a previous book club episode, we already did a spice morsel about Reverend Mother Antioch and a bit on her background. So today, let's talk about her partner in crime, Lucial.
Yes.
Here's what the encyclopedia tells us. Marcus Claire Lucial was born to Mater Felicima Catilius Marcia Lucial. What the fuck?
Fucking nailed
This
it.
person has,
That
like,
was great.
7
It was
names.
a lot of names.
Incredible. And Lucial was born on the Bene Gesserit chapter house on Wallach 9.
Indeed.
Now, as a child, we're told that she was, quote, bright, lovely, and charming, end quote. Okay,
Cool.
That's a great description. And in fact, she actually tended to get away with basically anything and everything.
Yeah.
And she had, quote, very few moments of discipline imposed upon her, end quote.
Yeah, we've all met kids
Love
like
it.
that.
Yeah, we've all been around that kid.
Yeah.
He's the annoying kid at the party.
Right.
Now, by the grand old age of 3 years old, she was already showing signs of extreme empathy and sensitivity to other people, which foreshadows her truth-saying, something that she started doing when she was 9.
Oh my God. That's pretty
Single
early.
digits, Leo.
Yeah, that's wild.
Incredible. Now, her lenient upbringing and her like prodigy level abilities combined to create like this perfect storm of a Bene Gesserit. Lucial, for example, was certified officially as a truthsayer at 15 years old,
Insane.
an age when other Bene Gesserit candidates are still literally finishing up their schooling. And only 3 years later, she underwent the spice agony and was awakened as a fully fledged Reverend Mother at 18 years old.
Fucking crazy. Chenoa attempted that awakening in her 50s.
In her 50s!
That's wild.
And to be clear, the Dune Encyclopedia is explicit about how insane this is.
Yeah.
Because this was, quote, the earliest any Bene Gesserit had ever achieved such positions, end quote. Truthsayer at 15, full-on Reverend Mother at 18.
Yeah. World galactic record. Historic record. Yeah.
Incredible stuff. So clearly talented, clearly a prodigy in every sense of the word. A wonder kid.
Right.
Now, in pursuit of all of these amazing things, she did forego some of her teachings, particularly in analytics and intellectual exercises.
In fucking listening. Lucial. Jesus.
And not being a brat.
Yeah.
Jesus. But we are told in the encyclopedia that she did master her prana bindu. So it's not like she skipped all of her classes at the Bene Gesserit school. She was just so incredible at some things that she kind of was like streamlined forward.
Right. Yeah.
Just so she could graduate. Now, growing into adulthood, she understandably was starting to become a little overbearing and obnoxious. I wonder why. And her mother, Marcia, decided to assign her as an assistant to Reverend Mother Tertius Eileen Antioch, someone we know. And the hope here was that the older Reverend Mother would help curb some of Lucial's more problematic qualities, right? Temper some of that flame.
Yeah. And we learned, by the way, talking about Antioch, we learned that one of her passions was helping younger Bene Gesserit. So,
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, smart call from Marcia there. Now, specifically, there were, quote, hopes that the woman, known both for her analytical skills and her acerbic wit, would be a useful role model for the young truthsayer, end quote.
Cool.
So that's a little bit about Lucille right there.
Yeah.
A child prodigy. She holds some incredible world records as a truth-sayer and a reverend mother. And she is working alongside Antioch in the hopes that it will calm her down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we see how well that's going in today's reading.
It's going at a pace. Perhaps a slow one, but it's going. Well, for our second morsel today, we want to talk about the Ilaka whip.
Let it whip.
Let it whip.
Uh-huh.
Now, in today's reading, Nayla beats the hell out of an ambassador with
goodness.
a, quote, improvised whip fashioned of Ilaka rope, which had been frayed at the end into wire-like fine strands, end quote. And we've talked about Ilaka wood before. In fact, we've talked about a lot of the things from Ikaz. It's an Ikazian
Indeed.
wood used for both, it's crazy, it's all of the drugs, both Ilaka drug, which is the orange tinted, I don't care what happens to me drug that they use on gladiators during slave fights, and Samuda, timeless sustained ecstasy drug.
Yes,
Just
baby.
vibing to the music, baby, having a grand old time. And remember, Baron Harkonnen had a table made of polished Ilaka wood, literally a drug table. Fucking awesome.
Flex.
That being said, through Dune and Dune Messiah, Ilaka was just a type of wood or the source of drugs. The idea of Ilaka rope jumped out at us as like a new thing, as a new development. So we wanted to do some digging, see if there was the sort of characteristic 35 pages in the Dune Encyclopedia about this incredible material.
Right.
Long story short, there wasn't.
Hello.
There's not a lot. But there was another instance of Ilaka rope, and specifically, it was in Children of Dune. This is a scene, it's in Arkeen, and, quote, sand dancers had come into the plaza at the foot of the steps, 100 of them, tethered to each other by Ilaka ropes, end quote. So, the one other instance of this fucking material. Now, other than that, it doesn't make an appearance anywhere else in Frank's books or the Dune Encyclopedia. This Spice Morsel's a lot of couldn't find anything. That being said, I wanted to end on some conjecture because Frank has given us a strange number of ground finds over the years. Whether it's like Shiga wire from the plants of Solusa secundus, whether it's Crimscale fiber from the Crimscale claw plant thing, the claw rope, claw fiber. A lot of different types of ropes. And so it seemed interesting and deliberate that Frank chose this rope in particular rather than Shiga wire, which has been shown to be kind of a torturous, mean thing, and Crimscale, which is also used in like binding things. So my opinion is Ilaka's qualities, the wood's qualities, because recall Ikazian explorers burned Ilaka wood unintentionally for like their campfire, and the smoke made them disregard their own bodily safety. So I think this is a quality of the wood, and the idea of making a whip or a fiber or a rope that allows people who kind of, maybe it's the oils on the rope or it's like something about interacting with the rope, makes someone disregard their own personal safety, aligns actually quite nicely with these ceremonial dancers who are dancing to the point of literal exhaustion and fatigue and collapsing, right?
Yeah.
Any of those self-preservation instincts would be curbed nicely by something like Ilaka. Now, also, we're told that this is an improvised whip, which is fascinating to me. This isn't like a standard issue whip, or at least this one is improvised, and maybe it is standard issue, but she had to throw this one together. The word improvised is there. Part of me thinks perhaps this makes the display more humane. Because if you're saying, I'm going to whip the shit out of you 20 times, and each of those lashes reinforces this sort of lack of bodily care, lack of you caring about how your body turns out, would make it a little bit less horrific, right? It's more about the lashes and dealing out God's punishment and less about the screams and the gruesome spectacle of someone being treated thusly.
Right.
So, I don't know, just throwing out a possibility there. Again, I thought it was poignant that Frank chose this material that, first of all, has only ever been used in kind of a ceremonial situation, above other, more commonly malicious ropes and materials.
That's true. I think there may be something there.
This is the theory crafting corner where someone who remembers too much about Dune tries to make things make sense.
Connect the dots. Yeah. We love it. That's what we're here for.
Intuitive leaps, not bits, folks. ChatGPT could never.
That's right. Can't even write a goddamn poem that doesn't rhyme.
Get fucked, ChatGPT. Just kidding. I support you.
And that's today's episode.
Woo!
That's today's reading, folks. We got through another section of this book.
Indeed.
It's getting juicy. It's getting good. And it's getting horny.
It's getting so horny. We got glitter thrown today. We got some lashes, some whips. We have the most enticing woman we've ever met on the page.
In the galaxy.
In the galaxy.
That's right.
Pretty good.
So, for the next episode, dear listener, we have some homework for you, as always. Make sure that you have read chapters 22, 23, and 24.
Nice.
And if your edition of the book is different from ours, then make sure you've read through the chapter that ends on the sentence, quote, Idaho felt the restrained passion in their touch and knew the deepest fear in his experience. End quote.
All right.
Sounds like a sex thing.
He goes to Gamont. Clearly, he's on the hedonistic sex planet Gamont.
Indeed, indeed.
Fascinating. We'll have to find out what that is.
We will. And before we let you go today, as always, we want to leave you with some reminders on the best way to support this podcast and to keep in touch with us.
And the best way to support us, as always, is to become a patron over at patreon.com/GomJabbar. Folks, we have more in common than not or something. So community,
yes.
Fucking join
our
ours.
Community.
Join it if you're in a financial place to do so. Because genuinely, our patrons make what we do possible. It makes it so much easier for us to give time to this podcast, the time that it needs.
That's right.
And in exchange for your support, you get ad-free episodes. You get weekly blooper clips. There's like 12 in today's episode. Also, because I've been dying and I'm super sick right now. And there's probably, I almost want to have like a super cut of all the times I had to die a
all
little
the sniffles.
bit. All the
Yeah.
It's just going to be awful, but maybe it'd be kind of fun. Anyway,
Yeah.
the patrons might get that. Who knows? And you'll get an invite to our Discord server where we are eagerly chatting about the upcoming video games, the movie. We're talking about the trailer that just came out. It's a lot of fun. It's a great place to nerd out about Dune with other people who aren't going to judge you, because Dune, isn't that a 1984 movie? And oh, it was remade recently? No, you idiot. It's a book series.
Wow, shots fired at someone, I think. Wow.
Like 7
That felt
conversations I've
personal.
had. Yeah. Someone said, oh, you saw that, the 2021. Oh, cool. It's a remake of the 1984 movie, right? And I'm like, I
wow.
will chop you in the neck.
Wow. Get fucked, those 7 people that said that to Leo. Another great way to support this podcast is to get yourself something nice
Yes.
from our merch store, gomjabarshop.com. Everything on that store is Dune themed. We have art, we have apparel, we got mugs, we got a tote bag, and so much more. Go check out all those goodies. One of my favorites is the Walk Without Rhythm socks we have on that store. gomjabarshop.com is the place. A great way to support us.
Indeed. And finally, we love to hear from you.
Yes.
gomjabarpodcast@gmail.com. Whoa, is that an email address associated with us?
Whoa.
Gomjabar, the
Hello.
podcast @gmail.com? Indeed it is. Send us an email. Say hi. If you've got feedback about episodes, what do you like? What don't you like? If you've got merch that we don't offer that you want us to offer, hit us up. Let us know. If you just want to say that you really enjoy what we do, we also appreciate that. Means the world. Makes it easier to get up in the morning and nicer to go to sleep at night, because I know I'll be dreaming
That's
of all
right.
of those nice emails that we've received.
That's right. And you know what? Here's a little extra credit assignment.
Sure.
Email us the number of unlimited breadsticks you think you could eat in one sitting. What is that number for you?
Again, I'm just thinking, because this episode is going to go out to the public feed in like 3 months.
Yeah.
In 3.5 months, we're going to get an email that just says like subject 12, nobody. Just be like,
Nobody.
What the fuck is this email?
Right. In 3 months, when we have forgotten we recorded this,
Yeah.
our email is going to be flooded with just random numbers.
Yeah.
And we're going to be so confused why.
Gonna be honest, I'm going to forget that we recorded this much sooner than that. There are times when I'm like,
Podcast@gmail.com, folks. How many breadsticks can you cram into your mouth hole.
How many do you think you can get?
Me?
Yeah. No, the other person I'm co-producing this podcast with. I was asking the Lhasa tiger in your room.
Oh, that little Lhasa tiger's tiny. She could eat like one bite. I don't know, man. They're always so heavy, and you dip them in the sauce or you put them in your pasta and I feel like I pretty much tap out at like a pitiful 4.
All right.
4, 5 if I'm really hungry.
I was going to say they're so oily and salty though. Like I always want, even if I'm full to capacity, I've got a breadstick sticking out of my esophagus. I'm like, and I find a way to choke it down,
Yeah, my number's 4.
I don't know, 10. It's like I feel like
10?
I feel like I could eat a lot. I like bread.
Okay, now I need to see you eat 10 unlimited breadsticks in one sitting. Like one dinner, one normal sitting. 10.
Yeah. I think it's pretty reasonable.
All right folks. GomJabarPodcast@gmail.com.
We'll upload a video to our Patreon of just choking down breadsticks. Well, friends, there is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the recording. But this podcast is always one step beyond logic, so help spread the word of Muad'Dib and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lord Party Podcast Network on lordparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at lore_party. We are also on TikTok at Gamjabar Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, whoever controls the podcast controls the universe. We'll see you on the golden path.